Okay, so everyone, today's speaker is Tracey Aldworth. She is the new or recently appointed Deputy Chief Executive of Milton Keynes Council, having recently joined from Aylesbury Vale District Council, where she held the post of Corporate Director and led organisation improvement there. Tracey has come on board to support the Council's directors across a range of services, including planning, environment, property and finance, as well as resource, law and governance. I think there's not a lot she won't be advising on, except for maybe how to trim the bushes and cut the grass, which I'm sure you can give a very good opinion on that also. So she's going to be a linchpin in the council by the sounds of it, and particularly working with Chief Executive Michael Bracey on delivering the council plan and developing the council's partnerships and key strategic relationships, which includes the topic for tonight, which is the Bletchley and Fenny Stratford town deal. So through the magic of Zoom, here we go, and I'll hand over to Tracey.
Thanks very much, Matt. And firstly, two apologies. Firstly, that I'm not John Cove, because I know that's who you were expecting this evening. And secondly, for my voice. So I'm sorry, I'm suffering with a bit of a cold. So hopefully it will bear out for the presentation. And Matt's very kindly going to move my slides on. Hopefully we can do it synchronized, Matt, when you can see that I need to move on to the next one. So hopefully just to talk to you really about the Milton Keynes Towns deal, which was announced last year, and we were designated by the government as a location that was going to get access to up to £25 million on submission of a town investment plan. And the council took the very early decision that it wanted to focus that deal around Bletchley and Fenny Stratford. And so that was the first decision, I suppose, that was made. And then in January this year, we set up the board and it had its first informal meeting. And obviously we were delighted that John Cove agreed to be our chairman. So just take you through the next couple of slides so you can see the membership of the board. So a very wide-ranging group of people that are represented on there, from our local MP, the leader of the council, Pete Marland, but also representatives from the town and parish councils, the college, the Bletchley Park, Network Rail. So as you can see, a wide range of groups and individuals there to help represent and inform the actual submission of the town investment plan. So just looking at the journey that we've been on, really, over the last few months, we've worked quite hard through both the board, but also some subgroups that we set up. And again, there were some other interested parties that were involved in that, whether they be people involved with connectivity and transport or the local community groups. And so through that process, basically, of engaging local community groups and partners, we went through the process of having a call for some initial submissions of projects that we needed to really submit to government in the summer, actually, because we got a first initial submission and allocation of £1 million. And that money is at the moment being spent on improving some of the redway links in and around Bletchley, but also doing some demolition of some sites to help us get prepared for some further growth. So it's been a bit of a long journey, but actually over a short period of time, quite an intensive piece of work. And that really culminated at the end of last month. So at the end of October, we submitted the TIP, which is the Town Investment Plan. And the rest of the slides really talk to you a bit about that. The process really was, as I said earlier, making sure that we were really engaging with the local community. And that really gave us the opportunity to agree what that overall vision was going to be for the place. And so some of you will know Bletchley and Fenny better than I. But there was really an opportunity to make sure that we were trying to focus on the benefits of the future, really from East-West Rail, but linking it to those things that have happened in the past, particularly around Bletchley Park. So that's really what informed the overall vision for the place. And that's really important as we go through this process. So the government, when it set out the guidance, basically we have to follow quite a rigid formula, I suppose, in order to get through the process. So these are the overall objectives that we're looking to try and achieve through this mechanism. So all the usual things, I suppose, that you'd want to do when you're thinking about a place. So it's about the regeneration, including sort of planning and land use issues, also the culture and heritage of the place, looking at connectivity, and obviously for Bletchley in particular, that's a really important change that's coming with East West Rail, but also thinking about digital connectivity as well. And then really importantly around the skills and enterprise infrastructure, and that I suppose is the biggest connection with your business club, really, around the opportunities of carrying on to grow as a place, and really for Bletchley and Fenny to achieve its potential. And I think with the evidence that we gathered through this process, it was clear that there were some opportunities that we really needed to grasp, really, and help to make sure that we were planning for the future for that location. So just running through, as I mentioned earlier, there's quite a lot of guidance from government about what you need to do in order to evidence your bid. And that really starts with that overarching vision that we just talked about and linking it to the objectives, and then trawling through the long list of potential interventions that we could look to make. So that was a process that we went through with lots of partners, a call for projects and potential ideas, which we then sifted. So you then had to identify whether those proposals really met the criteria, and if not, was it suitable for another funding? And we've got some projects that are running along that route. But more importantly, on SIFT 2, did they align with the overall vision? And then we really needed to identify which of those we could be delivering. And we ended up with a short list of projects. And that's really what we've worked through the board to deliver. So this is just it's a bit of a complicated slide, but it's talking about what was important to the government was that we could demonstrate our projects and our approach against what they call the theory of change. And so that was really looking at what the real market failures were in the place and how that linked across to our programme objectives, and then ultimately to see how we would allocate up to £25 million. So if you just look on the next slide, you'll see that we've got those broad projects and how they really link across to our initiatives and our objectives. So I will skip through those next two. And then if we come to, sorry, just one back, please, Matt. There we go. So that's the ultimate list that went into the submission. And so that really sets out what those broad projects were. A lot of it is around physical regeneration. And that really referenced back to the overall criteria from the government around, this is all part of the levelling up agenda. And this was why Milton Keynes was chosen and why the council wanted to make sure that Bletchley was the focus, because actually a lot of the evidence shows that Bletchley hasn't done as well as the main area of Milton Keynes in terms of benefiting from a lot of growth, but also some of the deprivation issues that really exist in and around the area. So our short list of projects really focus around the transport hub, and because of East West Rail, which is going to be opening in 2024, that new connectivity will bring something like, I think it's 5 million passengers through Bletchley every year. So quite a significant enhancement on what's going on at the moment. So looking to make sure that we really develop that transport hub. So there were some investment proposals there. We've also sought to secure some funding for what we're calling a revolving development fund. And that's really about linking it to potential sites that may come onto the market that provide an opportunity to do something different in that location, trying to use the money to bring forward development and then reusing any money that comes back from that and to reinvest it into the place. Really focusing on the public realm improvements that we need both in Bletchley and Fenny. And again, the plan is to work very closely with the town councils on that. I've talked previously about the Redway improvements, and again, there are some more improvements that need to be made. And I think, one of the great assets of Milton Keynes and in this location is the ease with which you can potentially get around on bike. And we need to do a bit more to make that more achievable for places like Bletchley and connecting it better into the centre of MK. And then looking at how, again, we maximise the opportunity through things like Bletchley Park and the Innovation Centre to really get some more skills and development going. And then the last two projects around fibre connectivity. And actually one of the really interesting things about Bletchley is that it's probably got one of the highest fibre connectivity access certainly across Milton Keynes, but there are still some locations that don't have that fibre to the premise, and this would be part of trying to connect those final places up. And then the last one really is around trying to actively market vacant sites. And again, for those of you that know the area, you'll know that there are some vacant and empty properties that again could use some additional promotion and investment. So broadly, just looking at that map, that's just to show you a bit of a distribution, but what you can see from there is quite a concentration really around the transport hub and connecting into Bletchley town centre as well, with the potential improvements that that would bring. So moving on to the next, just a bit about the time frame. So I mentioned that we submitted this at the end of October. That's now gone into government for them to consider, and we may hear possibly towards the end of this year what the next stages are and whether we've got through the first gateway. So it's not guaranteed by any means that we will get £25 million. We will have to go through the assessment process from government, but I think the advice that we've had from experts that were helping us really put the bid together, that actually it sounds quite a good chance to meet the kind of government criteria. So we are hopeful that that will be positive news at the end of the year, if not early into the new year. And then this is really just trying to set out the relationship between the various boards and partnerships. So as you can see at the top of the triangle there, we've got the Towns Deal Board, which, as I said, John chairs for us. But then we're obviously going to have to make sure that we get into actual delivery. And, you know, if we are successful in securing the funding, then we will have to move into ensuring that those projects are delivered and that we meet the outcomes that we are really obliged to, because we'll actually have to agree a delivery plan with government to make sure that we actually deliver on all those outcomes. So, final slide. Just briefly talk through what those real gateways are. So if we get through the first gateway, which we're optimistic about, we've then really got the hard work to do, which is about creating those detailed business cases for each of those projects. And that's really when we get to test out the deliverability of them and the key issues that are going to be involved if we're able to deliver them within that time frame. And overall, this programme is running for 5 years. So, you know, it will be a long-term investment for the area. And we know that, of course, 25 million doesn't go very far, particularly when you're talking about physical regeneration, but it's a great start, we think, for the area that will hopefully secure other investment coming on the back of that, and will be a great opportunity and a really good kickstart for, you know, what's an important part of, you know, the Milton Keynes area. I think that's it, Matt.
Perfect. Thank you, Tracy. Really appreciate that. I'm going to, in fact, I have the chat on my right. I mean, some fantastic opportunities there, as you say, not only for the residents of Bletchley and those that use commuters as well, with the transport links. I myself know trying to get through the Redway from the station to the stadium can be a bit tough, and unless you know where you're going. You know, unlike other Redways in Milton Keynes, I should say it hasn't maybe been brought up to be as modern and as direct as it could be, and that's probably the same with a number of the market towns that built Milton Keynes. So it's great that Bletchley and Fenny are seeing their time in the sun on this, because, you know, it is a very important part of Milton Keynes' history. And then there's opportunities for the future, as you say, with the tech hubs. So those maybe in the room that are qualifying businesses to be a part of that in the future, as and when they're around. Or that their staff are coming out of places like the Institute of Technology and the future education opportunities there. So I think there's really something for everyone there. But I'll leave it open to our members here to drop some questions in the chat, and then we can answer those if you have any questions for Tracey.
Matt, I've got a question. While the process was being put together, to what extent was the consultation with the local residents and the local businesses taking place?
Yeah, so Matt, I don't know if you can go back up to that slide which has got all the blue blobs on it. So we engaged some specialist consultants really to help us with that process. And so that really happened, I suppose, once the subgroups were established, so probably in August. And throughout August, September and October, there was a whole, and again, recognising that it was very difficult timing with COVID, but also over the summer, there were a whole series of events online. There were questionnaires that were sent out, and looking to use the existing groups, I suppose, to try and get information and input into that process. And we have got a whole section actually on the submission talking about our engagement programme. And when we went through a process, which I think is on there somewhere, yeah, on the 6th of October, we went through what's called the check and challenge process, which again is a bit of a government gateway, that before you get to put your submission in, you go through that process. And what they told us was that they thought that our engagement programme was one of the better that they had seen across the whole Towns deal arrangement. So there are something like 100 or 101, I think, nationally of these deals, and they had already seen quite a few and said that our engagement programme was pretty good. I think going forward, we're obviously going to need to carry on with that engagement, and I think this is a really good base to build from in terms of making sure that we continue the dialogue about Bletchley and Fenny, and the town deal really is just one opportunity to help focus on things, but it won't be the only thing. So I do think it's a great opportunity to carry on that engagement and build on that from the work that we've already done, but it certainly isn't over. I acknowledge that.
Fantastic, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, I myself, although that maybe was because my father happened to be the one promoting it, took part in the survey on the website, which was a real simple survey to do, and yeah, you could really give your viewpoints and challenge some of the traditional thinking around what development and what the regeneration would look like. So I think that was really important to for companies to put their voice forward in that way. Does anyone else have a question?
Yeah, I have one. Hi. How do you see, or how would you like businesses to become involved? How can we become involved in the process going forward, if there is room for small businesses to get engaged with it?
So I think we'll continue to think about how we evolve the subgroups that we had. So we had some subgroups as part of this process. I think where we're going to move to, obviously, is hoping that we get through the gateways with government, that the real focus is going to be on delivering those particular projects. So what we're going to have to think about is how do we involve the various stakeholders in those projects. Some of them are more naturally sort of leaning towards the business community. So whether it's the tech park or the sort of public realm improvements or the Bletchley Park activity. So I don't know is the honest answer. I think we're going to be making sure that we continue to build on the good stuff that we've already done, but find the appropriate mechanism to do that with local businesses. So again, we'd welcome some thoughts about how that can be done really effectively, recognising that we're going to be on a sort of a trajectory for delivery if we're approved with government. But it is really important that people know what those improvements are, but also get to influence them where there is some choice.
So is that, thanks for that, and that's obviously I understand that it's not necessarily very clear right at the moment. Is there like a mailing list or something that we could subscribe to, which would give us some updates for when things are changing and we might get involved?
So we do have our own dedicated website, and again we can circulate that and share that. It's called, if I can say it, Groundbreaking Bletchley and Fenny. And again, it's kind of building on the sort of, you know, the history. So we can circulate that. And again, you know, one of the aspects that we need to think about in the delivery of this is what that communication channel is. So we have done previous sort of updates and newsletters. And again, that's something that we will want to carry on doing, so we can make sure that the sort of business club and other interested parties are key, you know, recipients of that. So yeah, thank you for that. It's a good idea.
That's great. I'm just, I'll grab that off and put that in the chat in a bit. Have we got any more questions on those, any of those plans? Any comments? Anything that you think, you know, Tracey being new to the area, as she says, not knowing the individual elements, but anything that you think you could impart to really give a focus next time, and she can maybe challenge some of the more traditional MKers in the room in there, give them a run for their money.
I might, can I just ask, I might have missed this, but is the investment fund, is that ring fenced by the government, or is it going to be likely stretched because of the current situation?
Well, this was part of, I think it was a national allocation of £3.6 billion that has been ring fenced for the Towns deal. There are 3 cohorts. Well, actually, I think there are 4 cohorts. So the first submissions were the end of July. So I think there was something like 19 submissions that the government received then. We're in the second tranche, and there were 29, I think, that went in at this point. So the honest answer is, you know, I don't know for sure. I think, you know, part of the reason why I think we were keen to get it in earlier rather than leaving it to January, say, was, you know, to get on with it, but also to kind of seek, you know, security around the investment fund. But, you know, this is all part of the levelling up agenda, and, you know, there are, you know, key aspects, I suppose, of what this proposal would deliver that, you know, would be exactly what the government's wanting to achieve. So, you know, I'm optimistic and hopeful that, particularly with our local MP support, that it will get a good, you know, a good airing at government, and that we'll get some positive news.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Tracey. Any other questions about the town deal here? I've put the website in the chat for everyone.
Thanks, Matt.
Just one more from me, Matt. What's the timescale moving forward on this, Tracey?
So if we hear end of this year, early into the new year, we then go through potentially a sort of a 12-month developing the business cases and agreeing the heads of terms with government, really, on that whole legal process. So ultimately the programme is supposed to last until 2026, is when the last point at which you can deliver your outcomes. So, you know, really next year is a key year in terms of agreeing what the detail of the projects are and the delivery plans. And I would expect that we would get into actual delivery, if we're successful, you know, in the middle of next year, I would hope, on some of those initiatives.
Fantastic. I mean, it's great. I think, as has been hinted at, sometimes this government money comes down, it's waived, and then something happens and it's withdrawn. And I think the fact that you're already planning to have these advanced projects underway in 2021 really shows that the government on this point are really forward thinking, and not just worrying about, you know, what is quite rightly a serious situation at this point. But thinking about, okay, how do we get out of this when unemployment does rise, when transport to other locations has to improve and has to be more efficient and more spacious in order to combat potential pandemics such as we are in at the moment. So I think, you know, from my point of view, congratulations in being a part of putting Milton Keynes and particularly Bletchley and Fenny in the limelight. And if no one else has any further questions, I'm going to say thank you, Tracey, and hand back to Andrew to give further thanks and close in. And in my point, if Andrew, if you want to invite members to stay and use the remainder of the hour to network, those that can leave, then absolutely I'll leave the session running, and we can have a bit of networking after that also. But Andrew, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you,
Okay,
Matt.
thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you very much. Tracy, thank you very much for that presentation. That was really, really good. And I really hope Bletchley, to me, has always been not always, but recently has been sort of like the forgotten part of Milton Keynes and overlooked, which I find rather sad because I grew up in Bletchley, and for my sins, I remember the studio cinema and the state-of-the-art shopping centre, the Brunel Centre when it opened, the co-op, Sainsbury's, but then the Sainsbury's supermarket opened. Goodness me, that was such a big thing in Milton Keynes. So it's great to see that the council is working towards getting Bletchley back to its former glory, shall we say. So thank you very much for that, and I wish you luck, and anything we can do to help, please don't hesitate to let us know.
And we will obviously make sure that we're keeping you connected and updated with what's going on. And if you happen to bump into Ian Stewart, you know, make sure you mention the town's deal, and I'm sure he'll do all that he can to support it as it goes through the government process.
He's a good guy. Yeah, I'm sure he will.
Thanks very much. Nice to meet you all, and thank you for the opportunity. And sorry about the croaky voice.
Thanks again.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Tracy.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Tracy.
Bye.